Imagine standing on a beach 65,000 years ago. You can't read, you can't write, you've never seen a map because no one has ever made one. You have no idea what's out there past the horizon, if anything is out there at all. And in front of you is open water. Not a river you can wade across, not a lake you can swim in an afternoon. Actual ocean, stretching further than you can see, with currents you don't understand and storms you can't predict. Now here's the part that doesn't make sense. You get in a boat anyway. Not just you, your whole community, men, women, children, the elderly, all loaded onto rafts made of bamboo or lashed logs, paddling out into water where, if something goes wrong, there is no swimming back. There's no land behind you worth returning to, and no guarantee there's land ahead of you at all. This actually happened multiple times across tens of thousands of years in different parts of the world. And the question that's bothered archaeologists for decades is simple. Why would anyone do that? Today, crossing an ocean means boarding a plane, watching a movie, and stepping off 18 hours later somewhere on the other side of the planet. You don't think about the water below you. You don't think about the fact that you're crossing something that used to be one of the deadliest barriers on Earth. But for most of human history, the ocean wasn't a thing you crossed. It was a wall, a hard stop, the place where your world ended and something unknowable began. So when humans started crossing it anyway, they weren't taking a shortcut. They were doing something that by every reasonable measure should have killed them. Let's start with the crossing that shouldn't have been possible at all. Around 1 million years ago, something with stone tools made it to an island called Flores in what's now Indonesia. We know because archaeologists found the tools, sharpened flakes, cutting edges, unmistakably made by hands, not by nature. The problem is, Flores was never connected to the mainland. Even during the Ice Ages, when sea levels dropped low enough to expose land bridges almost everywhere else in the region, the water around Flores stayed deep. There's a stretch of open ocean called the Wallace Line running through this part of the world, and it's deep enough and the currents strong enough that swimming across was never an option for a human being. So whatever crossed that water didn't walk, it floated, probably on tangled mats of vegetation, ripped loose during a storm and swept out to sea with animals clinging to them, the way that still happens today after hurricanes in the Caribbean. And here's the detail that makes this stranger. This may have been before Homo sapiens even existed. This may have been Homo erectus, a species we don't usually credit with planning ocean voyages. Which means the very first ocean crossing in the human story might not have been a decision at all. It might have been an accident that some very lucky, very confused ancestors survived. But accidents can't explain everything, because tens of thousands of years later, something completely different happened. Humans didn't drift into the unknown, they walked toward it on purpose. Around 65,000 years ago, give or take, Homo sapiens reached Australia. And to understand how strange that is, you need to understand what Australia actually was at the time. It wasn't attached to Asia. Even during the last ice age, when sea levels were around 400 feet lower than today, and huge amounts of the world's coastline turned into dry land, there was still a gap of open water between the islands of Southeast Asia and the landmass that included Australia and New Guinea. Geologists call it Sahul, and getting there meant crossing at least 40 miles of open sea, with some estimates putting parts of the journey closer to 60 or 70 miles depending on the route. For comparison, that's not a channel you paddle across on a log. That's multiple days on open water, out of sight of land for at least part of the trip, with no way to know for certain that anything was waiting on the other side. And they didn't do this once by accident, with one desperate raft. The archaeological evidence suggests this happened as a sustained migration. Multiple groups, multiple crossings. Enough people arrived to establish a population that thrived for tens of thousands of years afterward. So the question isn't just how they crossed, it's why anyone would try. One answer is that they didn't know how dangerous it was until they were already committed. If you're on a coastline and you can occasionally see smoke on the horizon, or floating debris, or birds that clearly came from somewhere, you might reasonably guess there's land out there. You wouldn't know it was 40 miles away through open, current-swept water. You just know something was worth finding.
Another answer, and one that gets less attention, is that staying put may have been just as dangerous as leaving. Populations were growing. Resources on a coastline can only support so many people. If your options are stay and slowly starve as competition for food increases, or take your chances on the water, where at least there's a possibility of more room, more resources, more of everything, the ocean starts looking like the reckless choice. It starts looking like the only one that makes sense. There's also the water itself to consider, not as a barrier, but as a resource. Coastal populations were almost certainly capable swimmers and comfortable around boats long before any of this happened. If you already fish from a canoe, already understand currents well enough to catch things in them, the leap from coastal fishing to a longer crossing isn't as impossible as it looks from where we're standing now. It's not 0 to hero. It's incremental, generation by generation, until someone eventually goes a little further than anyone before them. But none of that fully explains the boats, because to cross 40 or more miles of open ocean, especially with women, children, and enough people to found a new population, you need more than a floating log. You need a vessel that can carry multiple people, hold together for days, and survive rough water without capsizing. We don't have the actual boats. Wood doesn't survive 65,000 years, but we have indirect evidence, stone tools on both sides of the crossing that show consistent technology, evidence that these populations were already using watercraft for shorter trips between nearby islands, working up the skill and the confidence needed for something longer. This wasn't the first time they've been on the water. It was likely just the furthest. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable, because it means these crossings weren't lucky accidents. They were the result of people who understood, at least partially, what they were risking, and did it anyway. Multiple boats, multiple trips, enough people to survive as a population once they arrived, which means enough people willing to get back in the water even after the first group made it across and presumably sent no way to report back that they'd survived. If the first crossing failed, no one on the mainland would ever know, and if it succeeded, no one on the mainland would know that either. Every single person who got in a boat and pushed off from that coastline did it without knowing whether anyone before them had lived or died in the attempt. Compare that to what risk means to you now. You check reviews before you book a flight. You check weather apps before a hike. Every risk you take today comes wrapped in centuries of accumulated information, telling you exactly how dangerous it actually is. Ancient humans crossing to Sahul had none of that. They had a horizon, a hunch, and whatever boat they'd managed to build. So why did they do it? Not one clean answer, but a combination. Pressure at home pushing them out, curiosity and confidence built up over generations of shorter, safer trips on the water, and maybe, underneath all of it, something harder to measure. A willingness to bet everything on the unknown because the known wasn't good enough anymore. That instinct didn't disappear when they reached the other side. It's the same instinct that later pushed people across the Pacific in outrigger canoes, settling islands separated by thousands of miles of open water, using nothing but stars, currents, and the flight patterns of birds to navigate. It's the same instinct that thousands of years after that put people on ships crossing the Atlantic with no idea what, if anything, was on the other side. Every single expansion of the human footprint across this planet started the same way. Someone stood at the edge of what was known, looked at what wasn't, and decided the risk was worth taking. You're only here, watching this, because somewhere in your ancestry, someone made that same bet. And they won.